Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Flight Path. We are so excited that you're here. As always, I am your host, David, one of the co-founders and the CEO here at Tern, joined by Brad, our head of design, Molly, our head of product, and we have got another great show for you today. This is the place that you will get all the news about Tern, about the things that we're building, what we're shipping every single week. And so if you haven't already and you're using Tern to run your business, go ahead and click on that subscribe button because these updates are going to help you run your travel business better. And so we are excited to kind of be digging into things. But we always like to start these episodes, these shows, with just kind of a little bit of a check-in, see how the week was going. So maybe Molly, kind of kicking things off for you. How's the week been?
Man, my week has been pretty wild. We launched a big feature, invoicing, that we're going to talk about later. And I think I put my email address like everywhere, like in the Help Center article in Facebook. And so every day it's like 30 emails and posts and stuff that's like, I'm obsessed with invoicing. And also, I want these 5 other things, which is like the best kind of feedback. We love it. But I've been like fighting for my life in my inbox this week.
But Molly's been getting a lot of email because we were just literally slacking this morning about this like email tool that a lot of us use on the kind of customer facing team called Superhuman, and it's this just like incredible email platform. And she's like, maybe I do need to give that a try. And I was like, Molly is getting a lot of email right now.
Yep.
Uh, Brad, how's your week been?
This week's been incredible. We've launched, so many cool things, one of which we just launched this morning. I don't know if anyone's seen it yet. We'll talk about it in a bit. But invoicing's been so cool too, to like finally get that out. We know how much people have been waiting for it. And like people are just loving it in a way where, I don't know, like it might be one of the best responses to a feature launch we've ever gotten. So it just feels really rewarding and exciting to have that out, and can't wait to keep delivering some more things before the webinar in a couple weeks.
Yeah. The vibes are good, I'd say. Like we were kind of flying to New York and ended up being on the same plane as Brian, the third co-founder of Tern. And it was just one of these like crazy coincidences where he was delayed. He wasn't even supposed to be on this flight. He like ended up getting on this flight, and he was literally the middle seat between my wife and I. Like we didn't plan that. Like literally, like we're just in the road.
Wait. Did you make him sit there the whole
No,
flight?
I switched.
Okay, good.
I switched. That's our strategy, is like we both take it and then we kind of make a game time decision on like, do we want to pretend like we just don't know each other and we like keep the aisle or the window, or do we like just switch? But we did switch. I took the middle. But Brian asked, he's like, you saw me scrolling through the Facebook group, he's like, how are the vibes in Facebook? Because he's like, I can't be in there, it's not good for my stress level. And I was like, the vibes are good. The vibes are good because of like invoicing, because of all the kind of progress that we're making. And so that's been really fun. I also just want to call out Molly's like, yeah, like another thing that we just shipped this morning. We are recording this 4 hours earlier than normal. So because we've got a board meeting today, and so we had to kind of reshuffle everything. I'm in New York. And so when they say they shipped something this morning, that must have been like 7 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
So I don't know who shipped that, but props to all of you guys. That's early. And yeah, we're all kind of nursing our coffees and waters and just trying to keep the energy going here. Right before this, they asked what time the board meeting was, and I was like, it's noon o'clock. So that's the kind of state that we're in for the webinar. But my
David,
week, it's been
you're not drinking coffee. You need to tell people what you're actually drinking.
this is coffee. But before the coffee, I'm actually ashamed to admit this. So I should not have told you this, but I guess I have to talk about it now. I haven't had one of these in quite a while. This is like Monster Energy, and there's a lot in there. Not a lot of good stuff, I don't think, but it's it does the job. It wakes you up. So here we
But
go.
Dave, you ratted me out on screenshotting my Slack post and putting it in the Facebook community about invoicing. I ratted you out on Monster Energy,
That's fair. That's fair. That's payback. Yeah. Um, I posted our Slack after I literally just screenshotted Molly's message, dropped it in Slack or in Facebook, and I was like, do I get points for being the Facebook sleuths? But apparently not. Apparently that's not how you win. Apparently it's cheating. But anyway, it's been a great week. We're gonna jump into it, and we're gonna start talking about the biggest feature, which is invoicing. And I'm gonna kind of hand it over to Molly here to actually like do a demo and kind of talk about it. But this is like one of those features where people have been asking about this for like literally like years, and it was one of those things where like everybody kind of said and described invoicing differently. And so I think we sort of had this like perception that's like, oh, this is going to be like a 4-month project to make invoicing work for everybody. And I think like we are learning like invoicing is still quite complex to do it the way that we wanted to do it. And we'll talk about that. But it has been so fun to watch the team tackle this, from the design, from the approach, to the way that it actually works, to how people are using it. And so true to what we try to do at Tern, like it may take us a little bit longer to build a feature than people would like, but we're going to like build it right. And so with that, I'll hand it over to Molly just start to kind of bring it to life. And we're going to try and remember to sportscast a little bit, kind of talk through. So if you're listening on audio, we'll try and describe kind of where we're at in the app and things like that. We're trying to get, it's a thing we're trying to level up on the podcast.
Yeah, and actually just one other thing, just in the spirit of like us always learning and trying to get better. I think with this feature, it was one thing that for a while we were convinced that people just had to adapt better to Tern. We were like, no, you like don't understand the way that, you know, the pricing tab with authorization works. You don't actually need an invoice. And like for a while, we were really just trying to approach it as more of like a training and a change management thing. And we were just wrong. Like when we really sat down and listened and like asked questions and approached it with curiosity, there were just big gaps that we weren't thinking about. So I guess like thank you as always to the advisors who really help educate us and kind of tell us what processes you need. And I think it's one that like I reflect on and I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God people kept pushing us and were willing to share and help us get better. And as David said, I'm going to try to sportscast and talk as I go. And I'm only like a quarter of the way through my morning coffee. So it's going to be an adventure. Let's go do this, which I always do this weird bug thing. You guys are going to have to tell me how to not do that. All right,
It's fun.
It's fun. So invoicing. So on your pricing tab now, if you go to any of your trips in Tern, as long as you have items that are greater than $0, you will see this beautiful new generate invoice button. And when you click generate invoice, you will have the opportunity to customize additional details. And as long as it's on the same trip, we actually pre-fill the same additional details so you don't have to copy and paste it over and over. But you can use our rich text editor to add anything you want here. We hear, Canadian agencies who are putting in TICO-specific information that's not fully supported in the invoice yet, just as one example. But really anything else you want to include in the invoice, you can add here. After you review the details, there's this create invoice button. And what this is going to do is publish the trip. And it's also going to automatically add this new invoice to your trip documents and make it visible to travelers. So we'll click that button. Might take a second depending on how big your trip is. We support, all of these different item types, pricing schedule types. And here is your beautiful invoice. And so for those of you listening and not watching, you have your logo here in the top right, information on your business, information on the travelers, the trip. And what's really cool, as you noticed in my demo, I didn't actually have to put any of this information in manually, right? We're pulling all of this automatically from your account. We will total up the remaining due for your customers to authorize, or that needs to be paid if you're not using authorization. You'll also notice this little authorized payment link that we will go to next, but your clients can review the invoice. And then if there are things that are ready for authorization right from here, they can actually click through to make those authorizations, which is pretty cool. And I think unique and special to Tern. And then here you'll notice that, I set up this trip kind of purposefully to show a bunch of different permutations of all of the different, deposit and final balance and installments and the different ways that people can pay in Tern. But again, without any duplicate data entry, without any manual work on your side, we're taking every single component of your trip, packages, everything, putting it in the invoice automatically and putting the most up-to-date statuses of whether it was paid, whether it was authorized, how much is remaining due. So just scrolling through here, you're seeing installment schedules, the supplier it was booked via. In this case, I've actually added a refund policy for Marriott. So you'll see that it's linking to Marriott's terms and conditions and refund policy right from the invoice. You'll also see that we actually automatically pull in your terms and conditions stored in your account settings. So this invoice is meant to be just the out of the box, one click, everything that you would need with the invoice automatically created. I'll do a quick pause here. David, Brad, anything you want to add before we show the next piece here?
Maybe just a few things to call out on the design side that I think are really cool that we do. I think that's unique to Tern. One thing here is that I think we actually support much better than some other places uh, payment schedules for multiple bookings on the same trip. Like we don't just say like here's the price of the invoice. You can like pay the invoice or pay that total amount. You can see actually like for say you book like a cruise and some shore excursions, and those things are paid for via different suppliers. They have their own payment schedules and statuses. You can actually break those things out and show what's been paid related to each booking, the specific terms and conditions and cancellation policy for each booking, and have that all listed here. And that is quite complicated to pull off on our end, but I think just really useful, again, when you're thinking about chargebacks and insurance and stuff to show like the actual details of the individual items versus like either having to create a separate invoice for each of those, which would be super annoying, or kind of like not being able to show the specifics there because you're just thinking about kind of like paying for the trip as a whole and not actually breaking out the individual items.
And like, what is so cool, I'm going to emphasize what Molly and Brad said, like, this is really hard. Like the behind the scenes stuff here is like crazy complicated. There's all these different permutations. There's all these different things. Like, and so this is why you like look at most of the other invoicing products out there and it's like, great news. You can enter your own line items. And we're like, that's stupid. Like you shouldn't have to re-enter the same information to get an invoice that you have to do on the account anyway. Like it should be one thing. Like the system should do the work for you to figure that all out. Like you shouldn't have to do that every single time. And so it's so cool to see this. And you can like literally see with Molly's test PDF here, like there are so many different configurations and permutations, and this is paid but not paid, and like there are 10 different suppliers all with their own terms and conditions. Like the complexity to make this work is very non-trivial, but we think it is the way that in the invoicing product should work when it integrates with the rest of a system like Tern, right? It's like one click and we give you a snapshot in time of where your trip is with everything that you need from a kind of insurance perspective, from a client communication perspective. It looks very professional. It's got your branding, like one click. And so it is really, really special to see this feature kind of come to life.
Amazing. One other thing just to highlight, those credentials that we talked about in previous podcasts, if you add credentials in your business settings, they will also show up on this invoice. So you can do that. And then, as I mentioned, go ahead.
And maybe I'll just like, because like, if people like, if you're listening and you're in Ontario, the TICO registration number will be like, thank goodness we finally have a place for that. If you are in the US, in one of the states that are like, you require solid travel, or you have clients in those states. So I think it's California, Washington, Hawaii, Florida, and Oregon, I think maybe. Check those exact states, but I know most of those are right. You will have to have seller travel numbers. You could put your seller travel number in there. Like if you're in different countries, different places, like you will have these different credentials, and there's a dedicated place for them. Just in case you missed the podcast where we talked about this, there's now a dedicated place for them, like Molly said, in the business settings. So you can go and like automatically those are going to be on all of your documents because we know how important those numbers are. So you may get those from your host agency. You may have your own credentials. However you get those. I would definitely encourage people to go in, add them to your business settings. It just adds a little bit more of a professional kind of element to this. And in some cases, it's literally legally required. So.
Amazing. And then as I voiced over, when your clients receive an invoice, if there are items that are ready for them to authorize, they can, right under the big remaining due amount, click through to authorize the payment. And you'll see that they're taken directly to the pricing tab so that they can see kind of the same version of the breakdown of pricing. And they'll see as a next step that things are ready to authorize.
Molly, what did you just hover over there? Is that a purple authorization button?
Wait, that's not the normal blue.
It's a different color. I wonder if we'll talk about it later in the podcast.
We nailed that. We nailed that, y'all. Really good. Really smooth. Nobody's going to pick up on that. Anyway, yeah, no, great color picks here.
For those of you listening and not watching, the buttons on my client-facing itinerary are actually purple and not the regular Tern blue, which we will talk about a little bit later. And then I actually wanted to do an impromptu one last thing just to orient folks who we hear over and over like, oh, I don't want to have to build out an entire trip just to shoot over an invoice with a quick authorization for like the resort, for example. So I just want to show you how easy this now is. We're just going to do a very quick test trip for the purposes of this demo. We're going to go to the pricing tab, quick log a package.
And just on that page, like Molly created a new trip, clicked on pricing, and then kind of when you go to the pricing tab on an empty trip, there's now this kind of default button, there's a button which says add item. You can select what type. Was it a lodging item? Is it a flight? Is it a packet? And right from there, that'll bring you to the new screen. So Molly's now filling out the details of a package. And that allows you to enter all the information without having to build the itinerary, without having to build piece. And now we're kind of on the pricing tab. And Molly's going to show us how literally within the amount of time that I just took to describe that, you can send an invoice to your clients.
Actually, David's slowing me down right now with his very good, actually.
Sorry, Molly.
very, very good broadcasting. I like it. So it was really that easy to just generate the invoice and not have to build out any trip components, and then take your client right to the pricing tab. And the last thing, this is actually in progress very soon. If you don't have any trip components built out, we're also planning on hiding the full itinerary and daily overview. So your clients just get a nice pricing screen, and you really have like zero pressure to feel like you have to build out the trip before getting some initial like invoicing done. So I think this should just go a really long ways towards people saying that it feels kind of difficult to feel like they can even get started with their client facing needs before they're ready to fill out kind of that entire trip experience.
I'm so glad. I was like, oh, I made it sound so complicated. Like it's actually quite easy. If you're looking for the easy mode, easy path, it's super simple.
And stay tuned. I mean, this is, I think, another area where like perhaps our thinking has evolved, or at least my thinking has evolved, right? Where I think like we kind of started building this and we like pictured that the happy path, right? In tech, we like talk a lot about like what's the happy path, which is the path that people take when everything goes right or like exactly as you'd expect. And so we thought about the happy path is like, of course, you're going to build this like beautiful proposal, and that's going to be like how you sell the client, and then you'll send that, and then they'll like just look at the beautiful proposal and they'll make a decision on that, and like they'll authorize it, and there's like this kind of happy path of trip planning. What we know happens a lot of time, and that's why we sort of built this whole flow. What we realize now happens a lot of times is like, okay, my clients ask for 4 different resort options. I just need to like get them the price, and like once they actually buy, then I will make sure they have a beautiful document to take with them. But like I can't be putting hours into like an all-inclusive where like it's not, it's just not worth the time to build out a whole thing until they actually push purchase. And so Molly and Brad and the team have done a really good job at saying, okay, well, how do you not lose the happy path, but also kind of create these different entry points like we just saw here, where like you can now with the click of a button add a package or add a lodging, enter the details that you want, send that to your client, get the payment, but then use that same information, that same block, you're not recreating the wheel, to then build out the itinerary, right? Like, so we're still staying true to this principle of really trying to eliminate the duplicate data entry, but just allowing you to start from different places and giving people the flexibility to present information and get information from their clients in a way that actually matches your process. And so this has been really cool. Just to, again, kind of watch our thinking. And this is a kind of a cool thing I think about our team is we try not to be super precious about our initial ideas. And sometimes it can take us longer than it should to get over those. But like, we get there in the end. And I think it's going to be just such a leap forward in terms of usability and speed and all these things. So really excited about that. Glad we showcased that, and more to come. We'll just say that. Register for our webinar on May 15th.
And we're not done with invoicing either. So if you are a Tern user, you might notice that we've labeled it as a beta. We typically do this with big new features that cover a lot of surface area where we just expect to get a lot of feedback and not to have nailed everything perfectly in the first version. And so, as I mentioned in my update for the week, I've been getting in tons of feedback, extremely helpful feedback about how we can make invoicing even better. So we have some things immediately slated. We're noticing some people, depending on their dimensions of their logo, it looks kind of small and squished. So we're making an update to just like better optimize for logo sizes. We've also gotten feedback that putting in additional details each time for a new trip, for a new invoice, is just a lot of work. And actually advisors typically have like a pretty common set of language that they want to just use every time and then maybe tweak per trip. So we're adding the ability for like to store a template in your business settings, and then be able to have those additional details kind of like always added to there for you to edit. And then the other thing in terms of immediate priorities is we're getting feedback from Canadian agencies who are really excited now to test out Tern again from a TICO compliance standpoint. And invoicing won't solve every TICO compliance need. I think some of like the split out pricing, like for sales tax and fees and stuff, those things are not solved through invoicing. There are other things that we can do to continue to chip away, like just making it easier to store your business address and then have that automatically added into the invoice. So I'm hoping to fit in that one next week too. And then given, again, this is a new feature, beta feature, those three things I mentioned is not going to be where we stop with invoicing. We'll continue to listen and prioritize work over the coming months to improve other areas that we're seeing come up as common patterns of feedback.
And one thing I also just highlight there, right? Like Molly talked about the beta, and I think kind of built into that is sort of this idea of like what does a beta mean for Tern, right? Because like we see this, we've talked in the past about the podcast how like people will say Tern's still in beta, and that's like a bit triggering. But like the for me anyway, but it's like we're not in beta, but we will this is how we sort of build products. Like this invoicing product did not ship until Molly had done probably hours of deep dive testing. Our engineers are testing, they're writing code-based tests. I mean, like it's not to say that it's infallible, but like we don't ship a product like this until we're like quite confident that there is a high quality bar. So when we talk about beta, it's not like, I don't know if this thing's going to work, like you shouldn't trust it. It's like the features that are there have been tested rigorously, but we know that the scope, right, may need to expand, right, to this point, right? The fact that you can't put an address on there doesn't mean the feature doesn't work. It just means that there's additional features that are needed for us to feel really good about saying, okay, this is like really the whole feature, if you will. And so I just wanted to kind of take advantage of that to clarify what we mean by beta, because I think sometimes people hear beta and they're like low quality, not ready for prime time, right? Like not sure, like that we would think about as like an alpha, and we have like a very small group of people that are going to play with that. But by the time we label something as a beta, it's more of like we want to see where our blind spots might have been, not that the quality of the feature isn't there.
Yeah, we also get questions of like, does beta mean that it's only available for a certain set of people? And I think the rule of thumb is beta is always like everyone in Tern, unless we say it's a closed beta. All this terminology we're throwing at you early in the morning. But yeah, I think we very infrequently do closed betas if we're extra kind of concerned about areas that may, break, that are harder for us to test, and we're very clear for the people who kind of opt into that beta that might be the case. Like our editor, for example, like we're treating that as a closed beta, but typically we do open betas, which just means like we label it in the product, but it's available for everybody.
You can almost think about it like if you see the beta label and product, it means like we like extra want feedback on like is there anything that's missing or those types of things and experiences that you have. So like send that in. Molly's email is molly@tern.travel. She's gonna have a new tool to be able to handle all the emails that you send, so it's all good.
And Brad, I know I jumped right into things that we're improving. I know you talked a little bit about when I was actually demoing some of the things, the complexity of building and designing for this, but was there anything else that you were hoping to voice over there?
I think we covered it. I'm super excited about all of it. I think maybe the one, I don't know if you already covered this, but like the one thing I'm also excited about is just a more streamlined way to input that information that you need in order to send an invoice. Molly demoed it, was like quite fast already, but like we know that there's some things there who like, why do I need all these extra fields on this form? Can I just have like the basics? And we're always thinking about how to like kind of clean up that page to make that more streamlined. So excited about those things as well in the future.
The thing that I just can't get out of my head is that beautiful purple that Molly had on the authorization. It's just like, how did you do that? Can we switch gears to that? Because that's gonna just really keep me distracted here. Brad, I think maybe you're gonna talk about how that happened.
David, don't ever try to switch your career to be an actor. But
I thought that was very smooth. I was like, people really were gonna love that transition.
B-.
This has been perfect amount of time for me to quickly set up some sort of demo that we can actually show this off instead of just talking about colors on a podcast. But yeah, just we, as of this morning at like 7 a.m. or whenever we ship this, you can now adjust your brand color in Tern, which will basically impact all of the client-facing experiences. Anywhere you have buttons in the UI, those will now reflect your color. I know it seems like maybe quite simple, but also we know like what's really important for you to show up to your clients in a way that like feels like you, that represents the brand you've worked so hard and invested in to grow that brand, to like make sure people recognize your brand, your clients have that connection to you. And so we kind of cooked this up a little bit over the last week. One of our engineers was like, wait, we could do that. Like we should just do that, right? It's like, yeah, like let's figure out how we can do that and not impact the rest of our roadmap, because we have like a million things going on. And we were able to put something together relatively quickly, and super excited to kind of have it shipped really in the course of a week. So shout out to Spencer on the end side there, and all the rest of the engineers who helped review that and make sure we weren't going to break anything by changing the color of all these buttons. But I can jump into a demo unless either of you want to add anything first.
Let's do the demo.
All right, screen share. And Molly, the way you do this is you put your tabs in a different Chrome window, so then you don't have to share your current window, and then you don't.
We decided that we like how I do it.
You asked.
No lie.
All right, so in your settings under business settings over here on the left, if you scroll down to the branding section, today or previously you always had your logo and your cover photo. Now you'll also see this brand color option here. By default, it's just Tern's brand color because this is the way it is for everyone today. But you could open this up and either type in your color if you knew like the hex code for your color. If not, you can, depending on your browser, you can also use like this color picker. This is part of Chrome. Each browser does things a little differently. So,
Brad, I think the screen share is making it so we can't see the color picker.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. There's a color picker there, but it's okay. Like you can, if you click this button in your browser, you'll get a color picker, and then you can also type in items here. You'll want to go down and hit save. Don't forget to hit save.
And Brad, just one other thing while you're here. I picked a few colors by myself, and they all look terrible. So what I did instead was there's a little eyedropper that you can use, and you won't actually be able to see it in the demo, but if you use the eyedropper and you hover over the color you like on your business logo, it will actually like nicely match your business logo. And Brad said he approved of my taste when I used it that way. So hot tip.
Wow.
Yeah. Or if you're like, if you have a brand color already, you just know it, just type it in.
Sure.
You got it.
Sure.
But yeah, so when you save this here, we'll hit save, and then you go anywhere you have client-facing things like an itinerary, a form, a group landing page, things like that. And what you'll see when you load those pages is that brand color is now showing up as any button on that page.
Can we talk about the hover states? Can we just nerd out about hover states for a second? Because when Spencer was walking through this, it blew me away. The level of like that had to go into like the text color and the hover states. Can we just talk about that? Can we just nerd out about design here for a second?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. So a few things to cover here. One, yes, you pick a brand color, right? Like that is a single color, which is what this button is here. But the reality is like when you're interacting on a website, you want to show that things are interactive. And often that means when you hover over them, the color changes. And so like a lot of the buttons and things in Tern, we already have some sort of color change. And we put those colors in our code. Say like, this is the color for hover. And for when you click on it, well, we're not going to make you set all of those things. Like that's a lot of work. And also you might not know like what to pick there. So we spent some time, aka Spencer spent some time playing around with how we could do this dynamically. So if you have a button like this with white text on it, talk about text in a second. You have white text and you hover over it, the button gets a little bit lighter. And then when you press down on your keyboard, it gets even lighter, which is how we handle buttons elsewhere in Tern, but it works for your brand color too. And then also this fancy authorized payments button, kind of the primary call to action that you want to draw the most attention to for you and your clients. You have this fancy little gradient on it. That's also kind of a hard thing to do dynamically. And so I had to do some fun math, which sounds wild with colors, but a lot of colors on the internet. Like, it is all math, and that's what you're typing in a hex code. It's math. And you can do some of that to do a gradient like this that works for any brand color you put in. So super cool to see this working. One thing I'll call out is like, this is if you have a dark button, like a dark brand color here, you can see white text, things get lighter when you interact with them. If I go back to my brand colors and say like, actually, I'm more of like a seafoam green kind of person, like this, what you'll notice here is the button text is now black. We handle that dynamically to make sure that you're not giving your clients something where the brand color looks nice, but they actually can't read it because there's white text on top of your light brand color. So we automatically update that the text color, and then we'll also adjust the way we handle hover states and click. So in this case, things get darker when you hover over them and darker when you click. And again, this is all just like the behind the scenes details to make sure this works kind of regardless of which color you have. And also just shows, I think, a lot of like the craft and care that our team has, our engineers have, to just be like, oh, we could just ship this thing and it works, but it's like, how do we make sure this works regardless of how you want to set it up, and make it feel like kind of the level of quality that we really care about here at Tern. So really excited about that. And then just another thing to know, I don't have it all set up here, but if you like go to the authorized payments page, I'm previewing, you can't see the button color, you're picking rooms, all those things, the color goes through in all of those places.
Yeah, basically everywhere you have a button that's client facing, it will observe your brand colors. And also let us know if there are other areas that you would want this brand to shine through, because we would love to continue to improve this too.
That is so cool. I remember, I'll give Teak a little shout out. I was like 2 years ago, we met with the Teak team for the first time, and they're like, you know what we really need and no platform's been able to do is like custom brand colors. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like, we'll have to think about that. And it's like so cool again, in like classic Tern style, that it's like, not only do we have now brand colors, but we have this like level of sophistication and like polish and kind of craft. I love that word, Brad, that you used, right? That's just like really special. And I love that deep dive because again, exactly like you said, you now see a little bit of the behind the scenes into like what goes into something as simple as color, right? It's like, no, we don't want to just ship a color. Like, we want to make sure that like it's accessible, that there's like the right contrast, and like we're going to do a whole bunch of math in order to figure out that for any possible color that anybody could put in. Like it's just one of those moments. I remember when kind of the team was surprised by this too. This was not on the roadmap, so it was like, wow, this is cool. I remember seeing that and be like, this is what makes Tern special. Like it's really, really cool. So love that. We have a couple other kind of quicker, or not quicker, important but smaller.
Quality
of life. Oh, we forgot to tee it up. We'll see. Maybe we're gonna edit in. Actually, I think we may edit it in. So let's cue Brad's theme song here.
Flight past the way, come and soar. Quality of life and so much more. With Dave, Molly, and Brad at the mic, showing the way. Every small fix brightens your day.
Oh my gosh, that was the highlight of the week. I completely forgot about this. Oh, Scott, we love you. Someone already.
We're hopefully we just heard it, right? So we'll make sure that we get that in, or at least a little snippet of it. So this was how I think we started our Monday morning. Was just like, over the weekend we got an email from Scott being like, I heard the call and I used AI to generate a usability improvements with Brad theme song, or quality of life wins with theme song. So I hope you all enjoyed that. We are taking requests, I guess you could say, or kind of suggestions for AI generated music for Flight Path. So send those in. It's just Molly at Tern.travel. And and anyway, so now that we're in that section, Brad, take us away. What or actually, I'm now looking at this and I'm realizing on the agenda it's Molly, but
yeah, it's
so
me.
it's really going to.
But that was actually a really good joke. I'll give you an A+. You're often more like a B+, but okay, no, that was really good. So we actually shipped a handful of quality of life improvements this week. I'm not going to talk about all of them for the sake of time, but I think the most important one to call out is has to do with landing page links. So For itineraries and for landing pages, each time you publish, you might notice that there's a new URL that you can send to your clients, a new link that you can send to your clients. However, how it's always worked is that even if your clients have an old link to that landing page or that itinerary, they are always redirected to the latest published version. So even if the URL, the actual like numbers in it look different, don't worry, the client has always been redirected to whatever you have published and is most up to date. However, it's always kind of created some confusion for advisors. We actually fixed this a while ago for itineraries, but we hadn't done it for landing pages, where if you're logged in as an advisor, that same old link will actually take you to the point in time version of the landing page that you shared. And so we see advisors, I actually just saw this in the Facebook community this morning, waking up in bed looking at Facebook as I do, which I'm addicted just as much as you are, David, now at this point, that they basically, because of that, you worry that you have to share a new link with your clients every single time. So while that has never been the case on the client-facing side, we fixed it on your side. So even if you click through from an old URL, it directs to the latest published version. So you're kind of getting the same experience that your clients had already gotten.
So much better.
So much better.
So much better. Love that. I'm looking. I think that's it. Like we said, we're not covering all of them. Check out plug for Molly's product updates. You can find those on the website, tern.travel. You click on updates. You go under the banner, which is currently promoting our May 15th webinar. If you haven't registered already, definitely do that. And stay tuned. Hopefully next week we'll have a fun little promotion that we're going to be doing about sharing the webinar in your networks and communities. But that's where you can find Molly's weekly product update. We also post this in the Facebook group. You can find the Facebook group if you're not a member just by searching for Tern Travel Official. That's what we keep referencing. We reference that a lot on the podcast. So if you are looking to join that, you can find it there. Because there's like a couple other things that we talked about that we don't have time on the podcast to talk about this week, but they are no less important. But with that, we are going to kind of wrap things up with a very quick kind of week ahead. We're going to start with Molly. What's coming up next week for you?
Well, we have a lot of improvements to do for invoicing, which will be really exciting. And gosh, do we talk about it? I mean, we're working on folders for the library. So really kind of outlining the specifics of that and actually starting to build it.
Love that for us and everybody that's listening. Brad, what about you? What's your week looking like?
Yeah, the two projects Molly didn't mention, we're making a bunch of updates to the trip overview tab to make it more like a real overview with the things you want to click on every time when you go to a trip. So super excited about those projects. I think those are going to be super impactful. And then Jade and I are going to start thinking about, we're going back to groups and we're thinking about occupancy rates and variable dates for room, for like lodging and things like that. So completely switch, well, not completely, but just like getting back into groups mode, which is fun. And again, adds a lot more complexity than just working on regular trips, but it's a fun challenge.
Ooh, if you have feedback related to either of those things or anything to do with groups, Jade, my fabulous product teammate's email is jade@tern.travel.
I thought for sure you were going to throw Brad right under the email bus, but no.
No,
Okay.
send them to Jade. We'll look at all of them, but yeah.
Perfect. That sounds like a fantastic week. Very exciting. We have, I think I mentioned this, we've got our board meeting today, which will be fun. And then next week, I am going into full-on webinar prep. Like this is going to be, I know the problem with saying this every time is that it sort of loses its impact, but we've got so many cool products to show on May 15th. We've also got some really big announcements, just like at the company level that we're excited to share. So there's just a ton of prep that has to go into kind of getting ready for that. So that will be basically my next 2 weeks, and it'll be, I think, really, really fun when it all kind of comes together. But stay tuned for details on that.
Best webinar yet.
Best webinar yet. We're gonna have some fun special guests. It's gonna be really cool. And so to kind of help get the word out, like I mentioned, we're gonna try a new thing where we're gonna basically give away a users conference cabin And way that we'll do drawings for that is how sharing the webinar. So we're going to create a bunch of social kind of assets that people can start to share out. We know word of mouth is the #1 way people find out about these webinars. And so we want to kind of like thank you and recognize you for kind of telling that story. In the past, we've just asked you to share and you have shared, and we are so grateful for that. This time we want to do some recognition for it. So we're going to try and set up a little tracking thing where like we can see how many people registered with your link, and that will be one entry into winning a cabin at the users conference. So stay tuned for that. Now that I've committed to it on the podcast, I'm really hoping we can figure out how to make all the piping work and all the tech behind it. But you know, that's how it works. You just commit to it on the podcast, then you figure out the logistics later. So that'll be my week. We'll see you then. And any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Register for the webinar.
Register for the webinar. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to Flight Path with Brad, with Molly, with me. And click on that subscribe button. Let us know what you think in the comments. Otherwise, we will see you next week, y'all. Bye.
Thanks.